Has science discovered humans and dinosaurs in the same layer of strata? If so, this changes everything. In this video, we look at the discovery made in the Sahara Desert by world-famous paleontologist Paul Sereno last year. Watching this deep-time evolutionary narrative collapse in real time is really exciting. It's awesome. Check it out. All right, what are we looking at today?
The Sahara Desert is home to some of the world's most isolated dinosaur bones.
Is that a dinosaur just right at the top of the surface?
Niger has long boasted fossil riches. Desert covers 2/3 of the country. There are countless bones poking through the ground, but most of the
Dinosaur fossils poking through the ground. Yes. Okay. Continue.
local scientists teamed up with Paul Sereno, a University of Chicago paleontologist.
I've come to Niger because it's got the greatest slice of the Sahara, the greatest expanse, the greatest desert, the greatest hunting ground for dinosaurs and, in fact, ancient humans. It's like being on another planet.
Like being on another planet where there's also dinosaurs and humans in the same place.
Here, Sereno and his team find the backbone edges of a new long-necked dinosaur. They're peeking out from the rocky surface that entombed them some 170 million years ago.
Let's hear that again.
They're peeking out from the rocky surface that entombed them some 170 million years ago.
That area entombed that dinosaur 170 million years ago. Right at the surface. Aren't dinosaurs supposed to be found deep? Stratigraphic layers laid on over time? A geologic column depicts layers of different rocks, with the oldest at the bottom and the youngest at the top, which would mean that dinosaurs that were here a very long time ago should be lower, and you should have younger layers on top of it. Okay, let's see. Is there more information on this? Why would a dinosaur fossil be found on top of the ground? Here we go. Weathering and erosion from wind, rain, ice, heat, and rivers break rocks apart and wash the fragments away. David says, it can take millions of years, but gradually fossils become exposed at the surface where we can find them. So which is it? Older rock at the bottom, newer rock at the top? Or that weathering and erosion over millions of years expose fossils at the surface? Both? Is it both? Either?
Let us continue our adventure.
As a paleontologist, I dug up dinosaurs and, you get these weird creatures. There's a sort of a detachment. The weirder, the better. The more fearsome, the better. And then I came across a human graveyard, and I realized this is my species.
It's the same area? So the dinosaur was entombed at the surface level 170 million years ago, and the human was buried. I wonder when they're going to say this human was buried. That human looks like it was buried deeper. It's not peeking out of the ground. It looks like it's a little bit subsurface there. Maybe they're 170 million year old humans. Let's find out.
I realized this is my species. This is my story.
Here, Sereno and his team excavate a teenager from the Green Sahara site called Gobero in Niger. People who existed here 5,000 to 10,000 years ago.
5,000 to 10,000 years ago? So the dinosaurs are 170 million years old, and the humans are 5 to 10,000 years old. 5 to 10,000 years. Maybe the dinosaurs and the humans are really far apart. Let's see if we can find where this is. 100 miles. Okay, so we see the scale. Agadez, Oasis Station. We've got Irahazer, Garufafao, and Igaro. A couple of those look to be about 30 miles apart, maybe 40, and the other one just over 100 miles. 170 million years, bunch of wind, erosion, whatever. But in the case of the humans they found, wind blew sand onto the fossils. They had to dig down to get the human fossils. Wind adds dirt, wind takes away dirt. 100 miles apart, or 20 miles apart. And the idea that maybe these dinosaurs were buried less than 10,000 years ago would make a lot more sense of the soft tissues they found in dinosaur bones.
But Mary went further. She took the bone and she dumped it into acid. Now, we all know that bones are fossilized. And so if you dump it into acid, there shouldn't be anything left. But there was something left. There were blood vessels left. There were flexible, clear blood vessels. And so here was the first soft tissues from a dinosaur.
And check this out. Sereno calls this the Green Sahara. So at this point, the Sahara Desert was green. But this isn't the only place that has dried up that was once green. While today's Greenland is largely covered in ice, in the time of the dinosaurs, the area was a lushly forested tropical zone. So Greenland is north and it used to be tropical and now it's totally arid. And researchers have found evidence of rainforests near the South Pole 90 million years ago, suggesting the climate was exceptionally warm at the time. Okay, so the South Pole was tropical, and the Northern Hemisphere was tropical, and the Sahara was tropical. Did you know that in the Bible, the pre-flood world was tropical? Adam and Eve were naked. They didn't have to wear clothes, it was so warm, which would make sense that the Sahara was green at this time. And when did the flood happen according to the Bible? According to the Septuagint, creation happened about 7,500 years ago, and the flood happened 5,300 years ago. So, according to the Bible, we would have expected to see people in a tropical green Sahara environment who were fossilized 5 to 10,000 years ago. And by the way, how are fossils formed?
So what's today's secret word, Cocky?
Today's secret word is...
Millions of years!
You all remember what to do whenever
Anyone says the secret word, right?
Scream!
Right!
All right, let's go to the source, which is the Natural History Museum. Bonafide.
Millions of years ago, this dinosaur was going about his normal daily life.
Definitely millions. Science.
But his day went from good to bad. Really bad.
Okay, he died.
After he died, other dinosaurs ate him. And the rest of his skin and muscles rotted away, leaving just his bones. These were quickly buried by mud.
Oh, really? Okay, the scavengers carefully pulled apart all of the soft tissues, all of the muscles and proteins, but made sure to leave the bones fully intact. Did not disarticulate them. You know, the tendons that, whatever, stays perfectly articulated. And then, where did that mud come from? Let's see that again.
And the rest of his skin and muscles rotted away, leaving just his bones.
Perfectly intact.
These were quickly buried by mud.
So, let's be very clear. The mud didn't kill the dinosaur. Because if we said that mud killed the dinosaur, this would sound like some sort of catastrophic mud event that would encapsulate and entomb the dinosaur. And since we find fossils all over the world, what kind of worldwide massive mud event would be necessary to fossilize all these remains around the world? This is why they tell the story. It died of natural causes, was scavenged, and then mud. Because all of these fossils all over the earth buried in mud is a problem. If you're trying to basically deny the flood.
For millions of years,
Millions
more
of years.
layers landed on top, sand and even volcanic ash.
See?
This added up to a lot of weight
Lot
on
of weight.
top of the skeleton. Some parts got crushed. While this was happening,
Oh, there he is down there at the
water
bottom.
seeped into the bones. It left behind minerals, turning the bones to stone and creating a fossil. Earth changed a lot over millions of years.
Oh,
Rocks that were once deep underground rose to the surface, a process called uplift.
there we go.
Very slowly, wind,
Then wind.
water and ice wore away the rock. Eventually, bits of the fossil skeleton were exposed and became visible on the surface. Fossils are constantly getting eroded out of rock. Most are lost. But if we're lucky, someone will find one. So how do they get buried so quickly?
Great question. I was wondering the same
Most
thing.
dinosaur fossils we find belong to animals that were living near to a lake or a river. They died, and a short while later the area flooded, covering the remains in mud and silt.
There you go. All of the fossils that we find were animals that died of natural causes or whatever near a river. And then that river flooded and covered them in mud. Is this explanation easier than the one that I have? A global flood event that entombed all of these things less than 10,000 years ago? If you're interested in less commitments, less mechanisms, you go with the one that invokes less miracles, basically. Occam's razor is pretty much always right. Continue.
Occasionally, something more dramatic happened. In one example, two dinosaurs, Protoceratops and Velociraptor, were fighting in the desert. They were mid-battle when, suddenly, a sand dune collapsed on top of them.
a sand dune collapsed on them. See, because you have to explain how the fossils happened without a rapid mud event. Because the thing is, animals know when there's natural disasters coming and they get away from it. You're not going to have a dinosaur munching by the river and here comes the flood and they're like, this too shall pass. Just going to weather this storm. No, they book, bail. This is why they say they die and then they're covered. Because animals would flee danger. It's in their programming. It's in their instinct. Maybe that's the end of their crazy stories.
In another tragic example, the feathered dinosaur Sittipati was sitting on its nest of eggs when a sandstorm blew in and covered it.
Hey, science, better than a global flood, am I right? Yeah, bona fide, yeah.
Fossils like this, from animals that were alive when they were buried, are really rare.
They're not rare. We have fossils of fish giving birth. There's this mysterious phenomenon called the dinosaur death pose, with dinosaurs with an arched back trying to get their last gasp of air. They're not rare. You just say whatever you want to. Natural History Museum. We don't like them because the idea of rapid catastrophic burial sounds problematic. Sounds too much like the Bible. Whatever. Sand dunes collapsing, rivers. It's exhausting. But hey, we all believe something. Whatever you have to tell yourself, so you can sleep at night knowing that the flood didn't happen. And in the book that you certainly believe isn't true, it also says to Peter, there it is, 2 Peter 3. Above all, you must understand that in the last days, scoffers will come scoffing and following their own evil desires. But they deliberately forget that long ago, by God's word, the heavens came into being, and the earth was formed out of water and by water. By these waters also, the world of that time was deluged and destroyed. This sounds a lot more like deliberately forgetting than science. The book was right.
For the snakes and the people they bite, for the friends I've made.